Malik is doing a standing urination. Again, usually just a sign of not a kind of a lower ranking wolf, not showing the need to be able to raise leg urinate to really extend that scent. But he does do a behavior called scraping following urination here, and scraping is a confidence issue, being able to broadcast the scent through the pen. So again, Malik's still feeling some good confidence of being kind of protected from that main pack going into retirement. While transitionally it took him a while to kind of get used to being on his own, he certainly has benefited and has regained his confidence that he had lost as an omega in the main exhibit pack. The retired enclosure is doing very well. A recent amount of rain created a real green situation, so we have a lot of vegetation, a lot of cool spots for Malik to lay, a lot of shade, a lot of relief from summer heat, although we're in a kind of a cool spell right now, so its temperatures are up and above 70s and makes it pretty good. Malik is not nearly as shed out as the rest of the pack. That's fairly characteristic of the Arctics, meaning that he's still got a lot of undercoat yet, and so we are still grooming him and trying to get rid of that hair, but it'll take some time. But by July he should be pretty much shed out, so he's got plenty of shade and keeps himself cool and occupied. And now he's just doing a little grooming there. And life in the exhibit pack is certainly an adventure for anyone studying wolf behavior. Denali's doing a little bit of testing. You see him doing a standover on Grizzer there. Grizzer is tolerant, but yet firm. He lets Denali know when he's had enough of his antics, and so that's something that we will see, develop as Denali has now fully matured to an adult, and see where that goes. One thing we are kind of watching is Shadow. Certainly, Shadow's age is always a concern for us, and Shadow's weaknesses that might be perceived by the younger animals. We look at things like his ear postures, and here you see his ears kind of flat back. There he's sniffing a scat that Maya dumped on a rock there as a marking. The other thing that we're watching for is how is he interacting with the rest of the pack. He does seem to be a little more aloof or a little more standoffish and not getting involved quite as much, and that's going to be characteristic of his age. 10 is extremely old for a wolf in the wild. Here in captivity, we know they can live to be 12 to 14 or 16 years of age. So he's got some life left in him, but we are seeing him weakening and just not really that interested in interacting with the young ones who will get a little bit of a ruckus. And here you see him really kind of slow to lay down, and that's, again, probably the sign of aging bones. The other thing you'll hear here is great tree frogs, which are part of the exhibit. And you'll even hear a loon, actually, in this recording. One other thing that we do on a regular basis is to provide wood chips, both pine and cedar, on top of the dens as well as under the eaves. And what that does is actually it helps a little bit in insect control. The cedars have a little bit of oil, but it certainly does stimulate them. And you can see the difference between younger animals like Grizzer, Denali, and Maya and Aiden versus Shadow. Their excitements create some social interactions here. You have a little bit of a wrestle there, and certainly Denali and Grizzer are very socially bonded and get along very well together. The other thing to kind of notice is that every wolf sheds differently. Grizzer has lost all the hair in his tail, whereas Aiden, Denali, and Maya still retain a lot of tail hair. Grizzer has not lost much on his neck, so every wolf sheds out a little bit differently. Grizzer's getting a little bit flustered with Denali there. Denali was doing a few dominance behaviors, a ride up, and right there a foreleg stab. Again, trying to show a little bit of status over Grizzer, who's clearly submissive, and probably more interested in scent rolling than anything. Submission is secondary to the scent rolling. But Denali's trying to take advantage of that, and Grizzer's putting up with it a little bit, but Grizzer's going to just basically do what we call a leave behavior and get out of Denali's way. So again, you see Denali in shadow on the den here. Denali's very relaxed. Shadow's alert, as usual, as the pack leader, kind of keeping an eye on things. Maya's going to do a little bit of a greet there. And Aiden's going to do an interesting behavior here, and this is something that we're kind of watching. Aiden's doing what's called a standover, which is a little bit of a dominance behavior when he's kind of standing on top of or standing over, making a point of standing over the head of Denali. That's a status issue, and Denali, you can see his ears drop a little bit. He's not that comfortable about it, but he doesn't really do anything about it, and that's always something to watch. Just because Aiden's lower ranking right now doesn't necessarily mean that's where he's going to end up in the long term. So we are very curious to watch some of these subtle yet important dominance behaviors. And as Maya approaches, Aiden's cautiousness becomes apparent. Maya did a circle around, came through the den, and was kind of watching for what Aiden's doing. That standover of Denali may have been observed by Maya and perceived as being a little bit too much confidence. Notice Maya goes up the hill with her tail up in what we call a T2, going up into a T1 tail posture. T2 is straight back, T1's over the head. And she's going to assert a little dominance over Denali. She's going to do a standover, and Denali is going to submit. And that's a good sign for Maya. Of course, she reinforced her standover with a little bit of growling. That always helps when you're trying to get an animal to submit. So, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.